All right. Good day, everyone. Right. Good day, good morning, right. Good evening, and good afternoon to everyone. Okay. My name is Desmond. Okay. And today we would be talking about designing effective learning strategies, right, using LMS, right, and AI. So what are LMS, right? LMS is a learning management system. Okay. So AI is artificial intelligence. I am hopeful today, right, we will be able to glean just a little bit more, into how, right, we can do better. If you are here today as someone who is learning, or if you are here today as someone who is someone that is helping others to learn, hopefully, this can potentially give you some insight on the possibilities of what is to come, if be it things that are already happening now, okay, or things that these learning management systems and AI which are coming in the future. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, hopefully everyone is excited. So as we dive deep into this topic, we must ask ourselves this question first, right? The first question we want to ask is, what is learning? Okay, so what is learning itself? We have to take one step back. Okay, this idea, okay, of learning is extremely fundamental, right, to people itself. Okay, and the main idea is, when you are trying to figure out what is learning, we have to figure out how humans actually learn as well. Okay, so for those whom are just joining in, okay, I welcome you. My name is Desmond. Okay, I'll be bringing you through, right, this entire webinar today as well. So how do humans learn? Okay, so there's this very popular, right, analysis tool, right, or technique, right, called the VARK analysis. So this VARK analysis, right, VARK, is a popular model that essentially helps individual understand their preferred learning styles. Okay, so everyone has a slightly different learning style. Everyone learns a little bit differently. Okay, so we understand that all humans are essentially different. Okay, so we learn through visual, auditory, read or writing, right, and kinesthetic, right? So we will dive a little bit deeper into these four different ways of learning itself, okay? And in all of them, we're trying to get a better sensing, okay? So this is part of this VARK analysis. So let's talk a little bit more about visual, okay? So in visual itself, okay, if you are a learner, right, typically you would be learning through the charts, diagrams, okay, and videos itself. Okay, so you kind of picking up through some of these different forms. Okay, and you typically find it easier, right, to remember, if things are appearing to you visually itself. Okay, so I'm a person who learns visually. Okay, and I personally know that. So typically I watch videos, right, for me and myself to learn. So I kind of fall into this bracket here. All right. Now, what about auditory? Okay, so auditory, okay, if you are an auditory learner, typically, you are someone who is really good at learning through listening, right? And when someone is verbally communicating the information to you, all right? So typically, you would want some sort of spoken explanation, right? Some sort of audio lecture, right? Or discussions, right? Having discussions with people, would definitely help, in your learning itself. And obviously, there's podcasts as well. So typically, people who are auditory in nature, right, would have an aptitude, right, for remembering information just by hearing it itself. Now, what about read and write? Okay, so if you're someone who is learning through reading and writing, so typically you're penning it down, right? So make sure that you are remembering. You are typically typing mental snippets, right? You want to consume the information and kind of synthesize it as well, right? From textbooks, articles, and making sure you're creating your own short form way, kind of like a cheat sheet, right? For example. Okay, and this note taking and summarizing, is how people will potentially learn as well. So this way, I would say it's pretty effective, where I kind of fall into this category as well. And lastly, right, we do have kinesthetic. Okay, in kinesthetic, all right, the main idea here is this, right? This person really want to learn through hands-on activities, right? To be able to experience it for themselves, right? To be able to physically, dive deeper, right, and go in, to unpack, right, what's really going on. Because once they can touch it, once they can experience it, right, they will learn better. So they are really good, right, in experiential learning, right? The term here is called that. So the idea is they want to conduct experiments, they want to participate in simulations, and even perform tasks, right, that involve movement and touch. Okay, so now understand one thing, right, before I move on to the next slide. Right, we as humans, right, as we learn, we typically don't just fall into a singular category, right? We do fall into multiple categories at one time. Okay, no one would always be just one bucket, right, of learning. So, like I mentioned, right, I am two, right? I am visual, right, and I am also read and write. So I learn best, right, undergoing these two methods of learning itself. Okay, so these are just the various ways of learning, and everyone, right, would be to a certain degree, okay, to certain degree fall under certain this bar. Okay, so you are not 100% just one. Okay, so now let's dive into this idea of learning strategy. So what are learning strategies? So learning strategies are what you call the approaches, techniques, or methods, right? That you would want to make use of, right, to enhance, right, the learning process, okay, enhance people's learning process, and help them retain and understand information. So the emphasis here is this: how can we, right, make use of techniques, methods, right, to help people dive deeper and get an intrinsic understanding. Now, what is one of these strategies, okay, that we can use to optimize the learning outcomes? There are many, okay, but we would dive, a little bit deeper into what are these other learning strategies that we can make use of. Okay, so for example, right, we can do organization, right, and chunking. So what do I mean by that? Right, so organization and chunking typically would mean to break down, right, difficult topics or difficult information into smaller, more manageable chunks, so that you can process it, right? So, for example, if I tell you today that, hey, please eat the whole chicken, right? The fully cooked roast chicken, right? And you want to consume it, right, in its entirety, in one shot. Can you do that? No, you can't really do that, isn't it? Right? So you want to break it down into the thighs, the wings, and so on, right? And then from there, you come and consume it itself, right? So comprehending difficult topics by breaking it down is actually a very important learning strategy. The other one would be repetition, right, and rehearsal. So the more you repeat, right, the more you go through the process of understanding, right, review it, right, and you recall it, and so on, you would actually be able, right, to learn better as well. So typically, you would use things such as flashcards, citation, or practicing the problems, but would definitely help, right, in reinforcement and retention. Right. So the next one is elaboration. Right? Elaboration typically will expand on the information and dive deeper. So it's a little bit like what I'm telling you, right? What I'm doing, right, is saying, hey, there is this topic, right, called learning strategies, learning management, and AI. And what can we do? Right. So I'm trying to elaborate, right, just based on a single word, right? So elaboration itself by explaining the concepts. Now, it will even be better, right, if the person who is learning would be able to explain back based on their own understanding, right? If they can say it out by themselves, it's going to be the best. All right. Now, visualization. So visualizations, like I mentioned, right? I am someone who learns visually. If we have good visuals, right, I'll learn better. So I won't dive too deep into it. Okay, and we have a metacognition, right, and reflection. So this typically, involves, someone who said that, hey, I am going to learn this difficult topic. Now I want to set a goal for it on the plan, right? Such that I can reach it. And then at each different stage in my learning itself, right, I'm able to evaluate right how far I have come. Right? Now there are more learning activities, right? I'll dive not so deep into all of them, right? In the interest of time, we only do have about an hour. Okay, but I would kind of list them out as well. So we have active engagement, right? Summarizing, problem solving, and using materials, right? Engaging in our materials, by having discussion groups and so on, right? We have a retrieval practice, right? Recalling information from memory, interleaving, right, mixing different topics or skills during study sessions, right, peer learning and collaboration, where you would go ahead and ask your peers and teach your peers. They always say, right, the moment you are teaching someone, that's when you are learning the most. Okay, and self-regulation itself. So monitoring, right, and managing one's own learning process. All right. Okay, so these are some of the learning strategies. We have 10 learning strategies over here, right? And there are many more out there, but these are kind of some of these most important ones, right? Whereby it's going to be a little more helpful, okay, for one to be able to pick this up. Okay, now making use of an LMS with AI. So the main idea here is this: I want to utilize, right, what is the latest, right, and what is the newest out there. Okay, and for time immemorial, not time immemorial, for the most of the past, since technology has been around, a lot of learners have had access to learning management systems, and learning management systems are not new, right? So they are not new. So what makes this term with AI different now? Right? How can we make use of AI to enhance the learning, right, of people itself? Okay, so you want to take a look at it from two perspectives. So typically, the understanding is that if there is a teacher, right, the teacher wants to teach better, right, and the student, right, the student wants to learn better. Okay, so maybe let's dive a little bit deeper, right, into both of this perspective, and I'll, as the topics go along, I'll talk about both of them. Okay, but if I am a teacher, right, what I would do, right, is I would start by identifying, right, learning objectives, right? So how can we be clear, right, in setting them? Okay, so would like to point out one thing up front. If I am an educator, and I know I'm an educator as well, right? Typically, it's going to be a mix of both, right? Making use of AI, right, and also utilizing what I have in my tool, right, in my skill set, right, to be able to teach itself. Okay, so how can we be clear, right, in setting learning objectives? Okay, so first things first, right, you want to be specific and measurable. Okay, so as a teacher, right, or as a learner, we want to state what learners are expected to know and understand and be able to do right at the end. Okay, that is important. Okay, so the language that we use, right, in setting it is going to be very important. We want to define what is our desired outcomes. So, for example, okay, instead of a topic or an objective that we say like understand blood. So, what do you mean by that? Right? It doesn't really make sense to anybody. Okay, so what if we change the term, right, to be more measurable, like demonstrating and understanding, right, of the cell structure, right, and functions of blood cell. Okay, so if we were to dive into something like this, then it would give a better sense. So we want to be able to demonstrate. We want to be able to understand, right, cell structure and the functions, right, of blood cell itself. Okay, so this is where we said, hey, okay, now I'm going to be very clear, right? I'm just going to be looking at these two things, right? To be able to demonstrate the cell structure, right? To be able to understand the function of blood cells. Okay, so that is being someone who would define the learning objectives, right? We're going to align with the overall goals as well. So what do I mean by that? When we have learning objectives, typically there is a broader goal, right, behind the course, right, or the training program. Like at the end of the day, what really should they be taking back? What is the desired skills that they would have at the end of the day? So it's a little bit more soft skill as well. Okay, so notice here, no AI just yet. Right, we will dive into AI in a little bit. Okay, so don't worry about that. Hang on there. All right. So when we are talking about project management course, right? Project management, right? How can we develop effective communication skills, right? We could say like this: why and how can we demonstrate the ability to communicate project goals, progress, and issues clearly and effectively to stakeholders through written reports and presentation? Okay, so this is the goal of it, right? So we want to have the goal of the topic in mind. All right. So another way, right, is to consider this thing called Bloom's taxonomy, right? So Bloom's taxonomy, right, is a framework, right, that actually lists out, learning and categorizes, right, learning objectives into 6 different levels itself, right? The idea here is this: we would structure and categorize learning objectives according to cognitive levels. Wow, okay, difficult stuff. Okay, but actually it's really simple. So how does this actually work? Right, we actually have a progression of learning, right, from balancing lower order thinking skills and higher order thinking skills between remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating stuff. So let's take a look at this chart I have over here. So on the bottom, right, we have recalling facts. Above that, we have understand, right, being able to explain ideas or concepts. Then we have application, right? Apply, right? Use information in new situations. After that, we have analyze, right, which is to draw connections among ideas. We have evaluate process to justify a stand or decision. And finally, right, to create new or original work, right? So this is kind of a roadmap of how we probably get to see that someone really understands something, right? When we've reached the point that they can create, right, and make something new, right? This is where, we say, hey, this person has a good fundamental understanding, right, and is able to now properly create something entirely new. Okay, constructing something. Okay, so that is Bloom's, right, taxonomy. Okay, so an example of Bloom's taxonomy, right, that will cover the different levels, right, would be something like this. For example, right, if you're talking just specifically on remembering, all right, we can say that, hey, this person is able to identify key historical events relating to World War II, right? So being able to remember, right? So for analyzing, we can say to analyze the causes and consequences of World War II. And creating, maybe the person can now create a timeline, a series of events, right, that have happened, right, during World War II itself, to be able to then, create something new. Okay, so this is the different levels, right? We'll cover the different levels as well. Okay, so post that, right, we want to take a look at the idea of making objectives action oriented. Okay, to use action verbs, right, to describe what learners can do, right, and make it or objective focused. Okay, so and they are to be measurable, okay, and observable. Okay, so let's get an example. Okay, so for example, we want to understand the principles of customer service. Okay, here what we'll get out of it is to say use the following, right? Demonstrate effective customer service skills by resolving customer complaints and providing appropriate solutions. Wow, okay. So instead of saying that it's just understanding principles of customer service, now we say now we have to have effective customer service skills. Okay, by resolving customer complaints, like problems on hand. Okay, so this really changes the whole idea, right, of setting learning objectives. Okay, so now obviously you may ask me, hey Desmond, right? Okay, so we are setting learning objectives, but where really should we go from here? Okay, so now we not to worry, right? We'll talk a little bit more about the actual learning management system, right, in just a little bit. Okay, so before we dive into that, just one more thing, right? We want to keep objectives realistic and obtainable. Okay, so if you're trying to teach someone something, right, you don't say, hey, today you cannot run, right? Tomorrow you must be able to fly. Right? So we got to keep it realistic itself, right? And say that what can someone learn within a reasonable time frame. Okay, how can we make use of the learner's existing knowledge and skills, and then challenge them, right? To go further, right, and learn more. Okay, so for example, we are trying to teach a beginner level programming, course, right, we will say that if this, what could be unrealistic would be developing a complex software application from scratch, right? So you don't do that, right? So you want to do something like write a program that solves a basic mathematical problem using conditional statements and loops. So that would be easier itself, right? So it won't be said that, hey, so difficult, right? I don't understand. So we have to be realistic, attainable, right? And we got to make sure when we are communicating these learning objectives to people, right, it would make sense. So that is, for you, right, as a human, right, who is constructing, someone who is for people who are learning, right, and that is a little bit based on that. Now, in my experience, right, all this would really help, right, someone who is learning to be able to get their foot into the door, right, to learn difficult topics. All right. Without some of this idea of setting learning objectives, and making it and using Bloom's taxonomy and so on, it's going to be tough, right? Especially, if you say, for example, tomorrow you need to take a major exam, right? Today you know nothing about it, so it's not possible. Okay, so we got to be realistic in that sense. Okay, so that is a little bit more on the human aspect. So now, what about choosing a learning management system? Okay, most of organizations out there would always choose a learning management system based on criteria that they would already have, right? And based on criteria that they would like to think that what is just more useful, what is free, and what is just something that they can make do with, right? Now at this point in time, right, I would say that learning management systems and being AI driven, right, they are coming out, okay, and they are soon to be there. And not all learning management systems are AI driven. So some of what I'm about to mention to you is already there. Okay? However, some of it is still in the hypotheticals, okay, and some of it would be a bit too fanciful for now. But all this, right, is the beginning, and all this, right, is definitely possible as well. So let's talk about it, right? So number one, let's talk a little bit more about how, if I am someone who is looking for a learning management system and in the traditional mindset, what would I be on the lookout for? Let's talk about that. So number one, when I identify what are your requirements, okay? So how many users do I have? What courses do I have? What integration capabilities do I need? Can it be scalable? And what sort of a budget I have. We talk about the budget down the road. Okay, and what is the ease of use, right? Is it easy to use? If the interface looks good, and so on. All right. Can I evaluate its scalability? What if I have 30,000 learners? Right? Does it make sense for me to use a learning management system that can only do very little? Okay. Well, can I check the compatibility, right? And integration options. What can I integrate with? So if I have an existing system, what else can I do to make sure that this system that I'm about to take on, right, will be able to help out, right, in making sure the existing stuff that I have, right, is not entirely lost. Okay, but obviously if you're starting fresh, then this doesn't apply to you. But if you're not starting fresh, then definitely you do want to consider something like this. Okay, what about mobile accessibility? Is there a mobile app, a companion app, right? Because we live in the digital age, right? And in the digital age, everybody is on their phone, right? Okay, so some of these standard things that people think about. What else? Let's talk about more, right? Content management capabilities. Can the system take on documents? Can it take on videos? Can it take on create quizzes and so on? So what can we do, right, in terms of the content itself? Okay, would it be easy for me in me being able to update the content, right? Would it be easy for me to publish the content, right, at the right time, right, for the learners itself? Okay, would I have access to collaboration and communication tools? Now, how would the people, right, talk to each other? Okay, and is there some sort of reporting and analytics itself, right? And obviously, is there some sort of support and training, right? When you're buying something new, right, you would want to consider, right, if there is some sort of support or warranty of sorts. Yes. What else, right? There's just a little bit more, right? We have security, right, and data privacy. Now, if I'm an organization, right, I will definitely be keen, right, in making sure, right, my data is secure, right? It doesn't go anywhere, right? It just stays within my organization itself, right? And I am strictly accessing it in a safe way. All right. What about the vendor's reputation and stability? Has a vendor been around? Right, but the vendor suddenly closed down. All right, and finally, obviously, the pricing and cost effectiveness. Okay, so these are some of the standard things that people would typically talk about. Right, I would talk about it. I would ask all of these questions. I'm sure you would too. All right, and typically these would help shape the things, the mindset, right, and checking the boxes and trying to evaluate, right, and understand a little bit better itself. Right now, those are the standard stuff. Okay, now post that, past this, what do we talk about then? Right, we want to understand where is the AI? Can AI help me, right, in A, either making my learners learn better, B, helping my trainers teach better, and C, right, helping the administrators of the system, right, do better as well, right? Because there is quite a fair bit of management that is in place. Yes. Okay. So where does the AI come in? Where can we slot this AI? Right. So let's talk about that. Okay. So I would like to throw caution here, right, and mention that not everything here, right, is in place, but all this will definitely come. Right. We'll talk about this down the line. Okay, so the first thing we'll talk about is adaptive learning. So adaptive learning, question is, adapt to who? Adapt to what? Right? So let's talk about that. Right? So if I'm talking about adaptive learning, nowadays, right, adaptive learning systems, right, and AI-powered adaptive learning systems have been around and people have been talking about them. Okay, but we do understand how would it work. The main idea here is this: the system should personalize the learning experience, right, for the learner, right, by potentially adjusting content and activities to meet their needs, right? Because every learner learns differently, right? As we found out just a little bit earlier just now, right? And every learner, right, has different speeds of learning as well. Okay, so every learner learns differently and has different speeds. All right, and obviously it'll be good, right, if the system can recommend appropriate learning resources and adapt, right, the different levels of exercises and even quizzes, right, to provide feedback, right, to the learner itself. Kind of this is the holy grail, right? The holy grail of it, whereby I'm someone who learns really fast. Tomorrow, I'm able to complete everything. If I'm someone who learns really slow, right, I won't complete tomorrow, but I will complete in 5 days' time, right? But both have the same objective, to be able to be good, right, at a certain topic. Okay, is it too good to be true? Yeah, maybe, right? Can AI really do all this? Yeah, maybe. Okay, obviously, we want AI to do all of that, but this is, like I mentioned, the holy grail. Okay, so let's see what is potentially feasible as well. Okay, let's see what can we apply. Now, when we talk about smart learning management systems or AI-driven learning management systems, we talk about a few things. For example, intelligent content delivery, right? In essence, the meat of things. Okay, and the idea here is this: we want to potentially, right, create adaptive learning paths, right? So you want to go this way or you want to go that way because of the different learning speed, like we mentioned just a little bit earlier. Okay, so an AI based learning management system can make use of algorithms, right, to go ahead and see, right, the performance of the learners, the behaviors of the learners, and the preferences of the learners themselves. Okay, so we want to understand, these three different realms, right, and then potentially, offer them different paths. Okay, so the system should then potentially be able to dynamically adjust, right, and help with their learning needs itself. Okay, so adaptive learning paths. Yeah. So what else? Content recommendation. So content recommendation for learners is actually 100% doable. So what do I mean by that? So by including, right, the learner's data, okay, and trying to figure out the performance, and the interaction history that the learner has with the system itself. Okay, how can we tailor, right, content and recommendations, right, to the learner itself? Okay, so we would want to say that, hey, there are some resources, right? There are some pre-reading materials, right? And there are some post-reading materials that the learner can go and pick up, right? Even before they embark on the course itself, right? So some extra reading. Okay, and if the AI, right, can help learners, right, explore and access relevant content beyond the core curriculum, it would definitely be immensely helpful for the learner itself. Now, that is one aspect, right? Content recommendations. What about this thing called micro learning and just-in-time delivery? I would say that at this point in time, this is a little bit more of a holy grail thing, okay, whereby this intelligent content delivery would be given, right, to the learners. Micro learning will be given to the learners as and when they need it, right, whenever they are in trouble, okay, or break down learning materials into bite-sized modules and personalizing it. I'll say that's a little bit more difficult at this point in time, but not to say that it's not doable. Okay, so they would have then access, right, to content which they can have, right, caught just in time when they are absolutely in trouble, or when they are trying to make sure that they are picking up something new, right? So they can learn from it and system can be able to provide. Okay, and what else? Okay, we can specify modules based on their performance as well. Okay, so this is one of it. Now, another aspect that I think is pretty interesting is about feedback, right, and remediation. So learning management system that has some of this AI could potentially provide intelligent feedback and remediation strategies, right, to learners and trainers itself. So if I'm a trainer, today I've taught, okay, and I'm not too sure, right, if the learners actually learn, okay, maybe, right, I can get feedback from the system itself. Now, if I'm a learner and I'm trying to learn, maybe through some sort of assessment, right, I'll be able to get some feedback as well. Okay, so that's one. Okay, so the other aspect of it is that this idea of a personalized feedback, right, is going to be immensely helpful, especially when the learner, right, is encountering challenges, okay, challenges, in their learning as well, because not all topics are 100% going to be easy, and some topics are going to be quite tough. All right, so if they are tougher topics, okay, if there is some sort of personalized feedback, it would be immensely helpful for the learner itself. Okay, so now some feedback and remediation. Now, what about the idea of assessments? That kind of also fall within the idea of feedback as well. So let's talk a little bit more about intelligent assessments. Okay, so intelligent assessments, right, would also fall within the category of intelligent feedback, because why? Only via me being able to assess how someone is doing, would I then be able to adapt the content and materials to the person itself. Okay, however, right, we understand that someone who is potentially weak, right, can probably not answer all questions, right, in a single quiz itself. Okay, let's talk about it. So adaptive assessments. Okay, so why do we want this, right? Probably some of you may have heard of GMAT, right? Some of you may have taken the GMAT, right? You understand that not everyone answers the same questions. End of the day, you get a score, right? And everyone's score is ranked out of 750 or 800, if I'm correct. Okay, and we want to adapt to the individual's learning capabilities. Okay, so every learner has a different capability and different knowledge. Okay, so you want to analyze their inputs, right, as they take on the quiz itself, okay, and see their response. And from there, we can dynamically adjust, right, the difficulty, right, of, right, the question itself, okay. And the types of question, right, can also be adjusted based on their performance. Okay, what else can we do? Right, these assures, right, that the learners, right, based on this adjustment and dynamic changing, be able to be appropriately challenged, right? If someone who is incredibly weak at a topic, you wouldn't want, right, to give the person a really difficult question, isn't it? When we do that, then to be honest, they would not be able uh, to understand, right, this whole topic itself. Okay, so they want to receive questions that align the current level of understanding. So with that itself, right, we would then fall into the idea of automated grading. Okay, right, you've taken the test, no, you need to be assessed, right? You need to be graded accordingly. Okay, so if I'll talk about that then, right, typically if a AI can help the teacher, the trainer, the instructor, right, to automatically grade it, then it kind of reduces their workload itself, right? Because why? I'm sure if you are someone who has been marking worksheets or someone who has been, kind of marking tests results, right? And, trying to understand what the learner is trying to tell you, it can be pretty painful, right? So this idea of having AI, right, do it for you, right, would reduce the workload, right, of the teacher itself. Okay, and typically, I would say that there is AI out there, right, that can help evaluate the questions, right, based, even on multiple choice or true false, and can give instant grading. There is already out there, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of systems that do it. Okay, but in this sense, how can we take it to the next level? Via assessing the adaptive assessments itself. All right. And finally, allowing learners, right, to receive timely feedback on their performance and progress. So from here, the learner would then be able to get a better idea of how they're doing, right? Are they learning better, and how can they grow? So now, that is assessments, right? That is, automated grading. Okay, what about, trying to get a bigger picture, right, of maybe the entire cohort, maybe a 360 view, right, of a learner itself. Okay, so we would dive a little bit deeper into learning analytics. So learning analytics is a little bit more whereby the system will want to gather data of individual learners and groups of learners and looking at the patterns and trends to be able to analyze it and provide insights, right, for the teacher itself. So at the end of the day, right, what you really want to help the instructor to do is to identify, right, knowledge gaps, right, and to assess the effectiveness of the instructional strategies that you've put in place. Because look, I would say teaching is also a little bit like trial and error. Typically, there is a fixed way of doing it, okay, but because every learner learns a little bit differently, right? Not everyone, will get the same result that you're expecting. So sometimes it could be disappointing, right? Especially if you as a teacher have thought that you have tried your best, right? So having AI to help you, right, as an assistant, right, to give you data-informed decisions will really help you to focus on the individual learners and even improve your teaching as well. Okay. So diving a little bit deeper, right, we can even try to predict, right? So if we have, right, the learning management system with AI inbuilt, right, to be able to forecast, right, learners' performance and outcomes, right, it would definitely be really helpful. This is especially so, right, for trainers, teachers, instructors whom are teaching big groups of people, right? If you're teaching big groups of people, people are just going to fall through the gaps, right? And when they fall through the gaps, right, you run into trouble, right? Because they are lost, and then you feel like, hey, why are they losing? Okay, why are they lost? Okay, so if we can forecast it, definitely it will be incredibly helpful. Okay, so we can analyze the historical data, right? Such AI in the system can analyze historical data, can predict future performance, right? We can find at-risk learners, and we can intervene early, right? So this would then be incredibly helpful, right? The main idea here is this: we want to help the learners to succeed, right? That's what educators really are doing. Okay, so this is the predictive analytics, right? But obviously, typically with predictive analytics, we have an idea that there is some sort of assessment that will be in place. There is some sort of idea that they are going through the modules and classes and so on, right? If the learner comes through and makes a system, and barely touches the system, then it will be difficult, right, to access, right, be able to do predictive analytics. Okay. Now, we would want to talk a little bit more about formative and summative assessments as well. So what are they? Right. So formative assessments typically provide ongoing feedback, right, and support, right, learning progress. So it's kind of like checkpoint, right? We want to get an idea. Hey, do they understand? Right? Do they really know? Okay. So some of this. Okay. So we thought about smart assessments. Now, assessments can be broken down into these two as well. Okay, so summative obviously is at the end, right? We want to get an idea, right? We are done with the course. So does everyone know everything? Right? Basically that. Okay, so most modern, right? Most modern learning management systems may not be able to give you the full output like so. Okay, however, right, a modern potential AI-driven learning management system, right, will be able to give you this, right? So from formative and summative assessments, will give you a output, right, that can help you measure, right, their overall achievement, right? Do they really know? Right? So that you can say that yes, you have done a good job. Okay, so formative and summative assessments. So diving a little bit deeper post this, then right, what you want to do, right, is to look at it from a bigger picture point of view. Right. Besides predictive analytics and catching the learners, right, besides assessments itself, how can we then improve, right, the overall cost? Okay, how can we have intelligent analytics and insights, right, into the overall big picture, right, which we are trying to bring people across, right, to teach people. Yes. Okay, so cost improvement is something that we would want to gun for, right? So what do I mean by that? So we want to use intelligent analytics, right, by gathering all the data together of instructional design, course materials, user learn rate, user engagement, right, right, completion rates, and assessment results. We're going to gather all this information and distill them so that at the end of the day, we want to identify, right, areas for improvement, right, to make data-driven decisions. So a lot of people in organizations in finance talk about data-driven analytics and data-driven organizations themselves. However, at this point in time, really this has not gone into the classroom. This has not gone into the training room. This has not gone into the lecture theater itself. So the idea here is this: how can we bring it there? Okay, so you want to take data-driven decisions, right, even in the classroom itself. Okay, so we want to improve the course, right, by distilling this information at hand. Okay, obviously, we have this thing called data visualization, right? Data visualization, right, is where you dive deeper and you create charts, graphs, dashboards. Okay, so the trainer, the admin, right, has a bigger picture of what's going on, right? Are we losing learners? Are learners learning? Are they doing well? Okay, so a bigger dashboard, right? The idea here is this: we want to distill the complex data so that we can make quicker insights, right, and decision making. Yes, right. It helps everyone who is in the process, right, in the idea of learning, idea of teaching, idea of administrating, right, to get a clear-eyed picture of what's happening. So then they can make use of this idea, right, and work towards continuous feedback, right, and improvement, right, feedback and improvement and feedback. All right. So some traditional way of doing continuous improvement and feedback, right, is the idea that, hey, every day there is a class, right? Every day is a potential chance for improvement. Okay, so a little bit, like this. Okay, so you want to get survey, right, and do feedback analysis. So this is some standard. Without a learning management system, a lot of organizations are actually using just simple Microsoft Forms, right, or even just pen and paper, right, to be able to get and facilitate, learners' feedback. So how do we do it? We use surveys, polls, interactive feedback. So this is, I would say, a cross between traditional learning management systems that should already have this in place, right, and the latest one with the AI to be able to make use of this feedback to do something about. Yeah. Okay. So we want to identify common themes, sentiments, right? And then provide suggestions, right, for improvement, or even get their suggestions for improvement. Okay, I think sentiment is something that I will probably dive a little bit more upon. Okay, a sentiment is something that would affect, right, not just the mood of a course, okay, but would affect the overall teaching, right, of the course itself. Okay, if people are not interested in the class, people are not learning, okay, this affects, right, the sentiment. So on the day-to-day, it'll definitely be good to be able to pull this out. Okay, so all these will help the instructors, right, understand learner preferences and identify, right, dissatisfaction, right, to make targeted improvements itself. So look at it from 2 points of view. A teacher, right, can be someone communicating the information, okay, but if we are just communicating the information, then it just be a lecture, right? It would be like a webinar, like for example, me talking to you now. Say, unfortunately, I won't be able to get your feedback, okay, but of course, right, I would love to hear your feedback, right, to hear if there is dissatisfaction, or to hear, if there is a certain preferences that you may have. All right. So at the end of the day, we want to figure out and make improvements. So survey and feedback, right? This has been around for a long time. Okay, but how can the AI, right, in the learning management system do better, right? Would then to feed this, right, to the entire process flow. So then from there, we can do continuous iterations and update. Okay, so continuously iterate, improve the course materials, improve the instructional strategies. Say, hey, if people are unhappy, right, maybe we do more hands-on. Right? If people are okay, right, they think there's too much hands-on, then we do more potentially even video watching. Right, so many things they can do to learn. Okay, so this is a little bit more real time, right, and we can make updates to the system itself, and then potentially improve the learning experience. Okay, so quite a fair bit of things, right? And we want to ask ourselves a few questions as well. Really, right? Does this is this the end of the using AI itself, right? Because I noticed I covered quite a fair bit, right, in what AI can do. No, there are some others as well, which is more traditional. What other features should we consider, right, in the learning management system? Right, there'll be features such as collaboration, right, and social learning. So in collaboration and social learning, the main idea here is this. Okay, we would really want, okay, to get people to learn together, get people to talk to each other. Okay, so how can AI jump in? Right, so I think for most of us who have gone through college, right, for most of us who have taught, right, in schools, right, you would always have project work, right? So group formation, recommendation. So how can an AI help out over here? So an AI, right, would then be able to analyze learners' profiles, right, and the way that they learn, right? They learn differently, right? So for example, like I mentioned, VAC, right? Hopefully I draw you back to that. Okay, and their performance, right, based on the assessments that we talked about. So from here onwards, okay, we can then create effective study groups or teams, right, within the learning management system itself. Obviously, they would study beyond the learning management system, but this system can help in this group formation. Okay, and from there onwards, okay, we can suggest suitable group members, right, if they have complementary skills and how they can enhance their collaboration together, right? So AI can help with that. So that's one. Okay, so that is beyond the traditional teacher teaching materials and so on. So this is helping them, right, to group together. What else do we do? We can have chatbots, right, and discussion forums. So discussion forums, really provide the place whereby they can interact with each other, virtually. Now everyone is talking virtually. If you're not talking virtually, you're not really talking. Okay, especially now we can talk to so many people at one point in time, at any point in time. Sorry, right, and we can have collaborative discussions. Okay, so we will encourage, right, active participation as well, right, using discussion forums, right, and chat bots. So many things, right, one can do. Okay, so we can have peer-to-peer feedback as well. So now peer-to-peer feedback mechanisms are going to be a little bit more manual, right? However, new age learning management system with AI will surely be able to help support them. Also, right, we can provide a culture of constructive critique, right? Using the learning management system, whereby they can provide feedback for each other. Okay, I believe most of us may have encountered this before. I personally have encountered this before. Okay, and it's actually really good if I can do peer-to-peer feedback. So obviously collaboration on projects and assignments. So the LMS will be able to facilitate collaborative projects, right? Basically a little bit like creating groups, right? We can match the learners together and so on. So this is a little bit more of an emphasis, right, of just now. Okay, so social learning networks. Okay, so we have groups, we have communities, right? Learners can connect, share resources, and engage in discussion. So this is an expansion, right, of what we mentioned just now, right? The idea of having discussion forums. Okay, but now not just in a forum manner, but maybe in social groups. They can connect each other as well. Okay, so now in these small little groups, or these networks of people, right? AI algorithms will definitely be able to recommend relevant content, right? Facilitate networking and potentially even identify, right, subject matter experts, right, for the learners to be able to connect with. Okay, so these are some aspects of it. Okay, what more can we do, right? What about learning analytics for collaboration, right? So now in learning analytics for collaboration, typically, you want to track learners' participation and contributions, right? So how they participate, how they contribute would, see that, basically assess us to say that, are they really gelling together? From here, if we get this information, right, the instructors would then have the data to improve and recognize effective collaboration and even provide targeted feedback. So quite a fair bit of it, right, would actually look at the idea of, is there teamwork, right? Is there the idea that, people are all chipping in their own? Okay, and this has been around for some time now, right? You are joining in via a virtual meeting and video conferencing. Okay, so there is going to be this, and look, right? We are no longer gathering face to face all the time. Only, right? We can learn online. You are listening to me online from different parts of the world. All right. So AI will then be able to do transcription, real-time language translation, right, and even facilitate, right, effective communication, right, across diverse groups of people. And all this technology, right, is here now, right, for this. So virtual meeting and video conferencing, because of COVID, right, has really skyrocketed, and this tech is the present, okay, not the past, not the future, it's the present, okay. Obviously, we have things to kind of help jazz things up as well, right? So the idea of gamification. So gamification, we will typically look at things such as points, badges, leaderboards, right? So what do we mean by that? Systems, right, we can incorporate gamification, will help by being able to distribute points, distribute badges, and help learners to gain them, right? End of the day, if they can gain these achievements, right, and they'll be able to show off to your friends, and that's what's important as well, isn't it? In the era of social media, everyone wants to show off their accomplishments. Okay, and if you have something like a leaderboard, okay, we can showcase their rankings, right, and even foster healthy competition. Competition begets improvement. All right. If there's competition, people will try to gun from first to be the top dog, right? And that's where you have progress. And now, some of this progress will definitely require tracking, right, and visualization. So how do we go about doing it, right? Learning management system, right, could potentially help out with that visual representation of their progress. And help advance through the level as well, right? So we want to see, is there some sort of mastery, right, of the skill at hand? Okay, and typically, we will have like dashboards as well, right, for the learners. It's just not for the administrators, right? It's for the learners, because then they can help set their goals, right? Try to see, right, if they can reach their goals as well. Okay, and maintain motivation. All right. So obviously, there are quite a fair bit more. Okay, but I'll head towards the last two, right, which is the idea of being able, right, to challenge themselves and do quests, right? Challenges and quests, a bit like game, right? Gamifications, right? And if they are going on the quest, right, they would feel that, hey, they are trying to achieve something. So Challenges or quests, right, helps learners, right, to earn rewards, right, and unlock new content, right, especially when we talk about things such as personalized challenges, right, based on individual performance and learning needs. So if the challenge is personal to me, I'll say, hey, wow, okay, I think I can go for it. I think I can do it, right? And if the system is challenging the person, right, they want to complete it, right, because this is a challenge to them. However, obviously, they will need a sizable, right, loot at the end, right, or sizable recognition at the end. So that's where, the badges point will come in. All right. So learners can engage interactive activities, right, problem solving exercises to make learning, right, more game-like, right, more game-like. So can say that, hey, I have completed quest, right? Quest complete. All right. So that is kind of the idea behind that. But I would say that not all management systems are able to do this, okay, because typically they would have to be built, right, from the ground up with something like this in mind, right, and be specific for that task, right, before they expand into being able to do everything. What I'm kind of showing you now is a bit like a learning management system, or a little bit like like the holy grail, like I mentioned a bit earlier, right, of a learning management system. Okay, so now after you've completed the quest, what are you expecting? Right, you'll typically be expecting, right, something like this. Can I get, okay, unlockable content, right, and bonuses? Okay, so really to gamify the experience, right? So the AI will be able to analyze the learner's performance, after they have kind of completed the quest, unlock additional content or bonuses for them, right? So to more of like a jackpot moment, yeah. So this really is for them to be motivated, right, to achieve higher levels of mastery, right, and explore within the LMS itself. Okay. However, okay, like I mentioned to you, okay, this is something that not all learning managements encapsulate. And for people who play games, obviously this is really fun and really interesting way of learning as well. Okay, so that is a little bit, of how I think, right, or how advanced, right, learning management system with AI, right, would be able to help out. Okay, however, okay, not everyone, right, no, everyone knows that not all learning management system is like that, isn't it? Okay, so maybe we want to back and ask the question itself. Okay, how can we balance, right, between technology, right, and pedagogy, right? The learning objectives, right, the learning styles, right, and the way of teaching, right? We talked about just now, like using VAR and so on. Okay, so how much, right, technology, right, is too much technology? Probably the answer is it's never wrong to have too much technology, right? Because why? Technology, right, AI, they are meant to be assistants for us, right? And we are meant to use them in our day-to-day, right? We are meant to make use of them to really help out, right, in terms of our learnings, right, and teachings itself. Okay, so the idea is we want to apply the right technology to your requirements and use case. So to my requirements and use case, for example. So not everyone, right, will need the same thing. Okay, and we want to understand the technology, right, so that we can utilize it to its fullest, right, and also that we can help to improve the pedagogy, right, and be able to potentially adapt it to the learner itself. Now, when I talk about adaptive learning, right, adaptive assessments and so on, all of this, right, would come. Okay. So now, again, every learner is different. There is not a one size fit all. Okay, because you have kids, children as learners, we have youth as learners as well. We have people in college or universities as learners. Okay? And finally, we have the adults, people, right, who are already working as learners as well. Okay, so the different group of people, right, would need different things in different points of their lives, right? Especially, would you give gamification to an adult? Yes, maybe no. But would a youth prefer gamification? Yes, 100%, because that is kind of their generation. And this kind of acts as a motivator as well. right? So it's not one size fits all. So in summary, right, let's kind of conclude, right? I kind of talked for some time now. Okay, maybe the question we will ask is, where do we stand now, right? How can we make use of the modern learning management system, right, to aid, right, in whatever we're doing. Okay. First, number one, right, we want to understand, it's a little bit small, I do apologize for this, that these tools are growing and coming of age. They are new, right, and they are going to be here, all right? So that's one. Now the question is, can the AI do it all now, right? The answer is no, right? The AI can't do it all now, but the thing is, we are talking about it, right? And if we are talking about it, we want to ask the question, will we eventually do it all, like what I've mentioned? The answer is yes. Right? The AI will do all of what I've indicated soon, probably in the next 2 to 3 years, right? Because of new developments, right, in the AI field, right? So can it do it all? The answer is yes. Okay, should we be afraid of it? The answer is no. Because why? Like I've mentioned, right, in my journey towards this slide, right, is that AI is meant to be an assistant, right? The AI is to be assistant to the administrator, to the trainer, teacher, instructor, and to the learner itself, right, student. Okay. So what about the learning strategies that I've mentioned? We want to talk about that. Let's circle back to that, right? Okay, it's going to be a mix of both. Right, at the end of the day, right, we do need to make use of both AI and the human touch, right, to be able to consolidate and help everyone, right, teach better, learn better. Yeah. And finally, what are some of the limitations in the cutting edge itself? Okay, so number one, we are at the start, okay, of a new AI revolution, not just in education, but in myriad of things. Okay? But specifically, we are talking about learning management system, right? So we are at the start, okay, and being at the beginning, right, there will be rapid changes in how we learn and how we teach. Okay, so AI has already become like electricity. Okay, so 7 years ago, right, I talked about AI becoming the next electricity. Today, it has already become electricity. And learners will learn better, right, in time to come, right? And obviously, trainers, instructors, teachers, right, will teach better, right, in time to come as well. All right. So that is kind of in a nutshell, right, of all the learning management systems, and how learning management system and AI, right, can do better. So specifically, if I talk about a Droid, right, as a learning management system, right, can a Droid LMS do it? Well, I'll say some of it, not all, right? So if you do want, right, do reach out, right, talk to us so that you can learn more. All right. Okay, so thank you, right? I have come to the end, okay, of this webinar. Hopefully, you would have learned a lot, right, from learning strategies all the way, right, to learning management systems and what AI has in store for learning management systems, and a little bit more in the near future, right, how some of these things can affect you, right, and how the way you teach, you learn, you train, you administrate in learning management system. Okay, right, that's it. Okay, so thank you so much. All right, so at this point in time, right, we want to open the floor for questions, right? For anyone that does have questions, okay, please do go ahead and ask in the chat. I'll be happy, right, to answer for you some of these questions. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, right, for coming today. All right, I would want to indicate that this video will be up on YouTube, right? So you'll be able to listen to it, right, and you'll be able to rewatch it from there. All right. I think that's the end of today, right? Have a good day, everyone. Right. Hopefully, you have learned quite a fair bit as well.